Welcome to Everything Life and Financial Freedom. We are your hosts, Linda and Jim McKissack. If you know our story, you know that we went from over $600,000 in debt to having financial freedom. We share some of the insights and practical tips that we've learned over the last 30 years for achieving financial freedom, building wealth, and building an extraordinary life. Let's get started with today's episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Financial Freedom. I'm Linda McKissack, and my host, Jim McKissack, had an emergency dental appointment. So I'm joined today with an amazing guest. And Frank, I always botch your last name. So I always call you my friend Frank. So my friend Frank, why don't you tell everybody what your name is? And at the end, we'll tell them how they can find you.
Frank Klesitz.
Klesitz. Okay. Yeah, I do pretty good. I get pretty close. So, Frank, why don't you do this? I always like to say, our goal here at Everything Life and Financial Freedom is to help what we say other ordinary people like Jim and myself who decide that they want to have an extraordinary life. And when I think about people who've done that, I think of you. You at some point decided, I don't think you were like born super extraordinary, were you? I don't remember you having like golden
Nope.
spoons in your mouth or any of those kind of things. So why don't you kind of tell the audience you were born and then what happened, Cliff Note version, and then let's kind of dive into that moment or those decisions that when you decided that you kind of wanted to have an extraordinary life.
Cool. Thanks, Linda, for having me on here. It's kind of cool to be able to share your own personal story. Real brief, if you can kind of relate to me for anyone in the audience, maybe I was raised in Omaha, Nebraska. My parents were jazz musicians.
Oh, wow.
My mom, fifth grade band teacher for 30 years. Doesn't pay much in public schools. And my dad sold insurance because he needed a way to make money outside of playing the bass guitar.
Okay.
So just were able to kind of piece everything together. And my family pretty much just saved everything they can to send me some good schools. Got a Jesuit all male high school is where I went, and Catholic schools raising up. But I will tell you, I got really into Boy Scouts. I really got into Boy Scouts and became Eagle Scout. And I don't know what it was, man, but if I really look back on my early years, I got very comfortable talking to adults, and I got very comfortable in leadership positions probably because of Boy Scouts. So I think it was just a natural fit for me to essentially be a leader, for lack of a better term. Starting about 16, 17, 18, started finding work because I just needed money like anyone else. It was difficult for me to hold down those jobs because I was constantly being told what to do under someone else's control all the time. Didn't quite like it, wasn't aware I didn't like it, but I just didn't really stick around with the jobs that long. I remember one job, I got a job with Applebee's. And the second night, I forget what it was called, but you were on trash duty. I'm like, okay, I got to go around and get the trash and take it to the dumpster. Yes, but also they make you do this at Applebee's at the time. You have to open all the trash before you put it in the dumpster and rummage through it to find any silverware that might have been accidentally thrown away.
Oh, seriously.
So you don't have, so the restaurant would save money on, things getting accidentally thrown out of silverware in the trash. I was like, this is not the direction I want for my life. That's what I literally said to the manager, and I quit.
I don't blame you.
I was like, I get it. I understand hard work, but this is not putting me in the direction that I want to go with my vision for my career. So I got a job as a fitness trainer, got my certification. I was actually a fitness trainer at 18 at a club. The first day, I asked them, where are my clients? They laughed at me, literally. They said, oh, you have to go get them. I said, okay, well, how do I do that? Like, well, go walk around the gym floor and introduce yourself to people. And here's what I said that kind of changed the direction of my life. I said, well, they're already here working out. How many people have a membership here that aren't? And a lot. Then I asked the general manager, I said, can you run a list of all the members here that are paying that live in these rich people zip codes at the time where all the mansions were in Omaha, Nebraska? And she said, sure. She printed out an old printer that you kind of rip off the sides.
Yep, I remember those. Yep.
Walked back upstairs and made my very first phone call saying, hey, my name's Frank. I'm a new trainer here at the club. I see you haven't been coming in. What's going on? What's wrong with you? Why are you paying all this money and not coming in here? Come on, let's go do a workout. And I just booked a ton of appointments.
That's great.
Yeah.
And what people don't realize is there was probably a ton of those people that had already said to themselves, I need to get back to that gym.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
you're
yeah.
exactly the
Just
prod
need some encouragement. Right?
yes. Yes.
Again, I didn't know anything. No sales books, nothing. So I'd offer them a free workout. They'd come on in, they'd walk in. It was kind of cool. I remember this because everybody was kind of dressed the same. Like there was not a lot of like, it wasn't very intimidating talking to very affluent, wealthy people when they're all dressed in their gym clothes. I remember
Right.
that. I do remember that. So I'd take them through a workout and no one really signed up. No one really bought a package of sessions for a couple $1,000s after a free workout. So I go down to my sales manager, like, hey, how do I ask for money? I'd never done this before. I'm like, well, I don't really know, but I got this old Tom Hopkins book in the back of a shelf. Why don't you read this Tom Hopkins book, old sales trainer, How to Master the Art of Selling?
Yeah.
So I read it and he's like, oh, look, here's the sales process. You're not honoring it. It's trust, need, help, and hurry. You have to develop trust first. You have to identify needs by what are they doing? And there's a whole acronym for it. What's the solution?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh, this is kind of a two-step. The first appointment, I should help them write a marketing or a marketing plan, a fitness plan.
Yeah.
So I did this one change and I invited people in to have a smoothie with me as opposed to working out. And I took them through a questionnaire to identify their needs. And they all bought.
Wow.
And I sold the most training in the history of the club that the manager actually flew me down at his expense to go down one of Tom Hopkins seminars in Phoenix at the time to come back and train all the salespeople on how to sell all the other trainers.
Wow.
And I made more money on the commission of selling the package of training sessions than I did actually doing the training. And I realized something very important at 18 or 19 years old in college was there's more money in selling the service than providing it.
That's a really good nugget.
Yep. I realized that the money isn't in being a great personal trainer. The money is in selling personal training. I realized that there's not a lot of money in being a plumber. The money is in selling plumbing services. The money is not being a real estate agent. The money is in selling real estate agent services. I learned that real fast. So, long story short, I fell in love with marketing and sales because I've learned that the money is in generating a lead, converting lead, going to the appointment, getting the contract signed, and then handing off to somebody else at a spread or a split.
Yeah.
Second thing that helped me. So that was the first thing that I got an aha very early on. And I'll talk to people today, man, that are in the later years of their life that still don't quite get where the money is. They still think it's in doing the service as opposed to selling it. Right. The second thing that someone taught me, I don't know who it was, maybe Robert Kiyosaki, reading one of the Rich Dad Poor Dad books, but the difference between earned and unearned income.
I think that was probably from Cash Flow Quadrant.
Probably.
Yeah.
It was something to the effect of getting paid for what you do versus getting paid for what you own. And getting paid for what you own is profit, and getting paid for what you do is wages. In wages, you sell your time. Profit, you're selling, for lack of a better term, a system. And I made a decision at about 20, 21 years old that I will never spend ever. I will never live off my earned income. I will only spend my unearned income. And the biggest expense I had at the time was my rent. Long story short, I ended up buying a house for like 150 grand in Omaha. That was a 3-bed, 3-bath.
Okay.
The payment all in, let's call it 1,500 to live there. So I'd have to go, I don't know, go earn what, $2,000, $2,200 to have the $1,500 after tax to pay the payment. Okay. So I had an idea. Why don't I get 2 roommates to help offset the cost and rent out 2 of the rooms for $500 a month? Perfect. So now I'm only in charge of 500 of the 1,500 I needed. Then after about 2 or 3 days sleeping in the master bedroom, I'm like, I have to go out and earn like $700 or $800. I have to go sell $700 or $800 of my labor to have after tax the $500 I need to pay my part of the mortgage. This is a trap. Rented out my master bedroom on Craigslist with 3 roommates, and I slept in the kitchen. And I lived for free for years. And I never have. And since then, I've never had. And I said, I made a deal to myself that if I ever have to pay for housing, it will come from profits or unearned income
Mm,
than my earned income, because paying for housing on earned income is a trap.
mm,
It's your biggest expense,
yeah.
you know, and you have to go earn a lot. You have to go sell a lot of time to have the money after tax to pay the housing payment. And those 2 decisions of focusing all of my efforts on understanding the money is in selling the service, not providing it,
Hmm.
and cutting my expenses down as low as I possibly could in the earlier stages of my life when you could easily, let's all agree, more easily do it, right? Where I only live off profit.
Yeah. Love
I
that.
don't actually provide, I only live off of my unearned income. And the biggest expense I was able to get rid of was the housing payment.
Yeah.
I think that's even more true today for most people. It's killing people, man. They're spending 40, 50% of their income on housing in some of these markets.
Yeah, for sure. So real quick, just to clarify for the people that are listening, because I got small business owners that listen, I got a lot of real estate agents that listen. So give them an
Mhm.
example both of what would be selling the service instead of this of doing it. So give them both.
Well, let's just talk about real estate agents. Is all the money is getting a signed listing contract, and then you can hire an agent for 20 to 30% of the commission to do it. I
Right,
mean, if you look at a lot of the top real estate teams around the country, they're using capital to do the work, not time.
right.
So they're spending the money on marketing messages to find out what your home is worth or to get a cash offer on your home that generates raw leads. And then they hire someone probably full time to sit there on the phone to sift through all the leads, to do needs analysis, and then set those listing appointments for agents.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, depending upon commissions and whatnot, you can probably keep about 80% of the commission for yourself, again, to compensate for all the risk of finding a listing appointment, and paying the agent about 20% of the commission when you start running we book your listing appointments for you messaging.
Yeah,
That's where I love to be.
yeah.
Gives you the most control.
And then I would think as a small business owner, truly not being the person that does it all, but hiring the people to do it.
Yeah. So someone else is the technician doing the work that would be happy to work at a, let's say, discount
Right,
because the customers are given to them.
right.
There's one thing I have to say for small businesses, in my opinion, is these thumbtacks and all these platforms that take a piece of your fee. You're like directly competing for your fee against like 3, 4 other providers. You've got to get off those platforms as fast as possible. And the Groupons and
Yeah.
being able to generate your customers directly without having to pay tithing to a platform.
Gotcha. So it's kind of like in the real estate world, a referral fee right off the top.
I just got done with an interview that was on the 72 sold train for years.
Yeah.
He's like, I needed to get off that with the change in the market. And it was like, I quote you literally, it was like detoxing as a drug addict,
Mm,
coming off that one lead source to have to, instead of having to pay the toll,
right.
like you're paying a toll to somebody, how do you go around the toll booth and get your business directly? Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. And which is always so interesting to me because, when I built my real estate business, those services really weren't out there. And so I built my business purely off the database.
Yep.
And so when people started paying these astronomical numbers off the top, I'm like, well, first of all, you're not building a brand by doing that. You're just working the next deal and paying a premium to get it. That never did make sense to me. And so, but there's a lot of people that do it, right? And I guess small business owners do it also with the services that you were talking about. So let's talk a little bit about what was your goal originally for financial freedom,
Yep.
and kind of talk about that journey a little bit.
Yeah, I think just being, again, naturally gravitating toward leadership roles.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to be in a leadership role and I wanted to have autonomy. So if you ask me what my top 3 values are, like what are the 3 feelings I move toward more than anything else? Like the 3 feelings I want more than anything in the world. I want to feel autonomy, I want to feel creativity, and I want to feel influence. When I
Mhm.
feel autonomous and I feel creative and I feel influential, and let's use the same word as maybe in a leadership role from an
Mhm.
influential standpoint. I'm like turned on, man. That is my addiction. That is my drug. Like
Mhm.
those 3 feelings. It doesn't go to show the up and to start an advertising agency as I do for a living with those 3 things, right? Um, I knew that I had, in order to feel those 3 things, I had to keep my personal expenses
Mm.
so low, so low. You know, I learned the value of a balance sheet, of having no consumer debt and having the flexibility of taking risks when you have cash in the bank. I learned the difference between paying yourself a salary and where that goes on the profit and the P&L versus what profits are, and how to think about salary versus profits. They're not the same thing. Profits, you get paid for what you own. Salaries, where you get paid for what you do. And I spent my entire 20s doing everything I could to lower my expenses to free up capital so I can invest it in marketing and sales systems to bring in customers
Mhm.
for myself, as well as buying real estate along the way. So what I always thought was like when the house of cards of the service business collapses, which it always feels like, I don't care who you are, it's just a bunch of people trading services with each other. Like, where's the real asset here? And you realize it's a system and a brand, right?
Mm.
And the people. I wanted to buy rental property along the way. So every single year, starting at the age of 20, Lord knows how I did it. I saved up enough money to put 20, 30% down on one rental property in Omaha. By the time I was 35, I had 15 rental properties, about one every
Wow.
single year with discipline. And the only way I could do that was keeping my expenses low. I mean, it's funny. I go to my wife and I say, like, Katie, like, I love my expenses. I study them. I get joy from them. I love my expenses. And here's why, because I know what they are. Like, they bring me so much certainty. Like, I know what the bill is. Like, I
Mm.
know those are going to clear. Like, I love them because it's certainty. It's the income that I don't know.
Mm.
It's the revenue. I don't know if that's going to come in. So I don't
Mhm.
really focus much on that because I can't control it. But the expenses I can.
Hello, thank you for listening to the Everything Life and Financial Freedom podcast. For transcripts, resources, and more, visit the episode page on the podcast website at everythinglifeandfinancialfreedom.com. You can also download our Freedom Number worksheet. This worksheet will help you determine the amount of passive income you need to generate each year to sustain the lifestyle you have or the lifestyle you want when you no longer wish to work or simply want the freedom of your time and your money. Mm. Something you said that I think most people are unwilling to do is make those sacrifices, which I think in your 20s probably would be an easier time than any
It's
other.
so much easier.
Yeah,
I would
before
live in
you
a cardboard box.
before you get a family or do whatever. But unfortunately, people don't normally wake up in their 20s. They wake up after they've been at the grind for
Yeah.
quite a few years. They have a family, they have a big house, they have a car. Now they're like, oh my, and there's still a way. I always believe there's always a way, right?
Yeah.
If you want something bad enough, but are you committed or are you just interested in it, right? That's the difference. If you're committed, you'll find that money, right? But I think so many people, and I think Dave Ramsey calls it living like no one else so you can live like no one else. I think the short term gain of things, especially now in today's society, they want it all now instead of, delayed gratification of even more or better or a bigger life than you could even imagine if you just did certain disciplines and habits on the front end and did without a few things on the front end. But I think that's the biggest obstacle for most people, don't you think?
Yeah. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. There wasn't a lot of displays of wealth.
Yeah.
You know,
But even the
all my
ones, even the ones that drove ratty trucks and
yeah, and like all my friends were
you
broke.
know,
It's
yeah.
easy when all your friends are broke and there's not a lot of disparities of wealth. There's not a lot of people showing off, and like I didn't really have any need to like flaunt money.
Mhm.
You know, I was also very fortunate that you know, long-term girlfriend at the time, I just didn't have a lot of need to show off. Mine was like, how do I become more free? How do I become a better leader? How do I become more autonomous? How do I have more control over my life?
Mm.
And every time money left my pocket, I felt less of that.
Mm.
Like it was a real, every time money left my pocket, I felt like I had less control over my life.
Mm. Wow, interesting.
Yeah,
So,
it was an association I had at a very young age.
so how many you started out and by 35 you had 15 houses. Where are you at today and what does that look like? And by the way,
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the market that you're in. Are you buying some? Are you not buying
Mhm.
any? Let's talk about that because we're all very familiar with the market's
Yeah.
changed.
So I have an income and wealth strategy. So my income strategy is, build a great advertising agency that helps people get customers. That's Vyral Marketing. That's my firm.
Yeah.
And that provides all the income for my family. It's a very cash business. It's an income for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, sure, there's value in a business, but let's be honest, it's a services business. Okay, there's nothing on the balance sheet,
Right.
right? So I wanted to invest in real estate. So up to about 2019, we had about 15 rentals, and then I started getting more comfortable with using debt intelligently, like
Mm-hmm.
buying a house on a line of credit, refinancing. You know, I had friends of mine that were starting to take venture capital and how they thought about that. It was just that was a big when you start, your whole life you're living on like saving all of your money and having no debt
Mm-hmm.
and showing up to buy investment property with a huge down payment, which is a great plan, right? Start there. But then once you get that foundation, like, okay, how can I start using a little, am I okay with taking a little more risk and using debt to fuel more growth? And could I go sell equity? Could I go, sell shares to build a business, kind of growing up in those facts. And that's what we did. And I went to some partners and we raised some money and I took on, a minority position versus a majority position. And today I don't know the exact number. I should know, but it's probably right around 200 single family rentals
Wow.
that we've grown from 2015 till then. Now I don't own all of them. I'm not the majority shareholder. I don't think like I own 100% of 200 houses. But the
Right.
point is, I brought on partners, and yes, we went over 1,800 appointments. We mailed hundreds of thousands of letters. We had a team of 8 in the Philippines following up. We bought Toyota Priuses for all the runners in the markets. We had contractors. I mean, it was a hell of a. I'll never do it again. Okay. But there were really low interest rates where you can get credit lines for like 4% and the deals were there and it was working. But yeah, I mean, we built that. Now
Mm-hmm.
it's just a matter of hanging on can the rents cover the debt payments when you leverage like that and everything else? So we'll see. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
come to you with a bankruptcy story in a few years. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
So
But,
when you say you would never do that again, what do you mean? What part of it? Do you mean the part of just having all the expenses to go along with all of that with the
yeah,
ship
I
or?
just, no, I think it's just whenever we emotionally and psychological burnout. So I think whenever you try to achieve anything great,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have to go really hard at it with obsession.
Mm-hmm.
So my wife and I were like, let's keep going. These are great deals. Let's keep buying. This is a great deal. Let's keep buying. Let's keep going. Why not? What do you want? Do you want to stop or do you want to go? Do you want to stop or do you want to go? We have these discussions all the time. And we're just like, let it rip. Let's find out. We had a package of 50 houses. There was a guy that wanted to sell us 50 homes. I'm like, what do you buy it or not?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's say yes. Right. So I think you have to get very aware of when is enough
Mm-hmm.
because there is a cost. Yes, there's risk. Yes, it's money. Yes, it's work, but there is also a psychological and emotional cost of doing anything great.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I had more time to kind of reflect on this because my wife and I are actually spending a lot of time on this now, but we're done. It's not worth the time away from the kids. It's not worth the sleepless nights. It's not at what point does peace of mind? That's the word.
Mm-hmm.
At what point is peace of mind greater than the money?
Yeah.
And
That's
everyone has to find that point for themselves.
Right.
That's why I answered that question that way, is I wouldn't do it again because the peace of mind was just, is the bank going to refinance? Is the bank going to pull out? Is the appraisal going to come back the way that's supposed to? Is the contractor going to get the job done on time? Like, you're kind of borrowing money to make sure this has to line up, that has to line up anytime in real estate. And
Mhm.
trust me, when you scale up like that, you lose a lot of peace of mind.
Well, and I think too, and one of the reasons we've never used the method that you're talking about, is because we knew we would be more vested in other people's money than we were our own, and we didn't want those sleepless nights, and we didn't want
Yeah.
that extra pressure, because literally you got all the headache and all the pressure for the least
Do.
amount of money, and
Yep.
that's a lot on anybody. So, but we've watched people in our area do it. We've seen people do it, and we've just always said, look, I I would worry more if I had your money and I'm trying to figure all this out
Yeah.
than if I were doing it with
Yeah.
my own. So
So it's the peace of mind, but we come out on the end of it and we're very happy with it. But look, I don't like talking about like how much real estate we own or how successful this is. There were things set up years ago where the decision to live off of unearned income and
mhm,
not active income. So I had the flexibility of time. I'm not selling time for money. I'm selling a product or service for money.
right.
Very different thing.
Mhm,
And then not having I mean, even though I have a housing payment, it's coming from passive income. I'm writing that check for housing payment, right?
right.
Eventually. And then also I was able to make enough money where my wife didn't have to work
Yeah.
and I could afford a nanny. So now my wife and I really had that flexibility to go forth and go build our wealth.
Mm,
And we were in that position without breaking our marriage to be able to do that. And those things were put in place years ago for
mhm.
that snowball to work up to that point.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, and that's the thing I say to people all the time. You need options, and you have to do certain disciplines to be able to get to a place where you have options. It's when people don't have options that everything crumbles. They're backed up against the wall because all their expenses dictate what they can and can't say yes to or no to, right? And then back to your point, one of the things that I have found that's really, really good is to always have someone else that you can call, because sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees,
Hmm.
that you can call and say, it's kind of like phone a friend, right? And say, hey, we've got these 50 houses, we're looking at them. Tell us what we're not seeing, right? I had someone reach out to me recently, and they sent an opportunity to us, and one, it was an opportunity for us also, but it mainly was an opportunity for them. And when we looked at it, I just sent a list of reasons why we would say no, you know um and a lot of it came from experience. A lot of it came from understanding the difference between speculation and investing, right? But I think having someone that you can pick up that phone and do that with is super important, because you do get kind of clouded by the deal, right? And so, I think everybody that's listening needs to have somebody that's a wiser or a little farther, or just another investor that's at your level that can say, well, here's what I see that maybe you're not seeing, or here's what I would say yes to, and why I would say yes or why I would say no, and all of those things, right? Because it helps not being the only person looking at a deal.
And in order to evaluate that, you have to be in the position to take risk. You take one deal, man, and like everyone looks at it so differently and they all come to different conclusions. I'm like, why does everyone come to different conclusions looking at the same deal? I mean, they have different timelines and what they want out of it, whatnot, but ultimately it's like they have in the back of their mind what their balance sheet is and how much cash they have and what their expenses are. And everybody has a different financial statements.
Right,
Everybody's personal financial statement is different, and what their tolerance for risk is.
right.
And going into a deal and going in when you're investing, when you have a lot of extra money every month
Yeah,
and you don't have any consumer debt and you have money in savings,
yeah,
is the position you want to be in,
yeah.
you know? And the only way that I've been able to find to do that, the two pieces of advice I have for anyone listening here is you got to get out of your housing payment. You got to figure out how to get roommates and you got to figure out how to zero cost your
Mhm.
housing payment. That changed my life
Yeah,
because it's the biggest expense anyone has. And then second, you need to figure out how to get more customers.
Mm,
You have to get a system in place, a predictable, repeatable, consistent system to get profitable long-term customers at margins where there's profit.
yeah. Yeah.
Those two things
Yeah.
change the direction of my life.
Yeah. Simple, but not easy, right?
Not
Simple
easy at all.
ideas, but not easy, right?
Mhm.
But they're game changers. If you can do those things, and this is what we say to people all the time. We never had a goal of living off of our real estate income. It was a backup plan to a backup plan, right? So we were continually growing the income we had coming in, and working on growing that, not expecting to even ever look at the money that was going to come in off the passive income stuff, right? And I think so many people get a few properties and then they start wanting to live off of that,
No.
and
Oh yeah.
that's going to stunt your growth.
I got to speak to that. When we went and bought these rentals, we knew we'd have to put money in for 20 years because they were 20-year loans because they're commercial loans at that point.
Yeah,
So we bought these as a retirement plan.
right.
So all of our real estate has been purchased where we will not see the financial benefits of these properties for decades.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we'll probably have to put money in when things come up. We did not buy any real estate ever with any expectation. I mean, it's honestly laughable to think that we would get any income from anything now.
Yeah,
It's all when the loans mature in
yeah.
15, 20 years that
Now,
you hopefully can see some income.
now is that because we did have income that came off of, and we just chose not to live off of it? Is that because of the prices that you had to buy them at,
Yes. Well, it's
and
everything.
and
Well,
where
let's
the
just talk about that. So,
where the rents are now?
well, yeah, I mean, so let's talk about buying long-term buy and hold properties. Let's not talk about Airbnbs. Let's not talk about cash flow, regular old single family. I want to hold on to this thing and get some passive income out of the rents. All right. So you're going to have to buy in a market where you get a 12% gross rental yield or higher, meaning the price of the home divided by the annual rents needs to be 12% or higher, or the 1% rule. So $100,000 home rents for $1,000 a month, $130,000 home rents for $1,300 a month. Now you can't even get that anymore. Prices
Right,
have gone so out of whack to rents, ain't going to happen.
right.
And you're going to have to buy probably in the most affordable markets in the United States. Google the most affordable places to live: Waco, Texas, Amarillo, Texas, Omaha, Nebraska, Des Moines, Iowa, Louisville, Kentucky, Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah,
Those types of places you're going to have to buy. Let's say that you show up with 20% down, or you do a burr out strategy where you buy it on line of credit, refinance 80%. You know, even if you show up with 20% down, at the rates you're going to get, your spread between the rent and the mortgage might be $100 to $200 a month.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If that.
No, you're going to try to take money. Are you kidding me? No,
Yeah,
no, come on. No. Like there's something to come up. The city's going to inspect it. And plus these houses have been, they're 20 years old, 30 years old.
yeah. You're gonna
You
have,
know, you're going to have to write checks.
yeah, yeah,
I don't, there's just, I think it's at today's prices or
yeah,
buying single family, you know, even if you buy in the sketchiest of areas where you'll get more than 12%, you're still going to have the expenses. And that's why that's why they rent. That's why those differences are there.
yeah. That's what
The
we
only
have
way,
all
yeah,
the time.
the only way you're going to make money in buying real estate and cash flow is if you're buying all cash and not using much debt.
Yeah, or putting more down, get
Or
more
down, yeah, yeah,
place.
just less debt
And we
on the house.
say it's still a great place for your money, because if it's in your hands, it's going to be spent, and you've got an opportunity for someone else to pay off your house, and
And the
the
government is just going to keep printing money and drive up the value.
yeah. And
Yeah.
then the icing on the cake is any appreciation that you have. That's awesome. So any new plans? I mean, the beautiful thing is that I love about what you said is, because you had options, you could decide to step back from something that was working, that you don't want the stress of anymore. And without options, people can't do those kind of things. So is there anything new on the horizon? I know you were kind of excited about building
Yeah.
your cash
I'm,
flow business.
yeah. I mean, if you kind of look at, I want to talk to all my friends in real estate here, but if you look at the 2000s, let's say 2010 to 2020, it was all about teams and expansion and owning multiple divisions because you have insanely low interest rates. And it's really cheap to find buyer leads and hand them off to your team where you're buyer heavy. And you can build these huge teams and have all these accolades in a buy side business with cheap interest rates. That's kind of like the story of the decade, right? Like team building.
Yeah.
Then the pandemic hits and you kind of get this huge, crazy tail end with like crazy, crazy interest rates, super low in like 2021, 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're just seeing a general worldwide that, capital ain't gonna be that cheap no more.
Yep.
So you're seeing this transition to like, I got to build a listing based business.
Yep.
And this whole like, being in multiple businesses and getting all these cheap buyer leads to have buyers agents run everyone around. That's also under threat with the commission lawsuits that are out there. Who knows what's going to happen? But there's a really big shift back to like, I need to market myself as a professional to homeowners to get listings.
Which thrills me because Press and I have been working on a project that we're not quite ready to announce yet, but I kept seeing the gap of the way people were building their business. And I'm like, that's not how I built my business. I built an asset that someone else could run for 20 years
Yeah.
without me. And I could sell it for multiples of over 1.1 million. People aren't doing that. And so that's exactly where Press and I just recently landed is we've got to help more people understand that you've got to build a brand that's so noticeable that when people think of whatever your business is, you're the first person they think of, and at least in the top three. And, we just said now the market shifted in such a way they don't have any choice, right? No
And that's where I'm kind of, I kind of crushed it really hard for 3, maybe 4 years, seeing how I could apply my skills to buy rental property.
Yep.
Now with that not even the picture, and then also the demand for this viral marketing over here coming back where, I really need to do something to work my database and make videos and all that. I'm just really excited to just go deeper with their customers and get people on video, get people out to their list, and taking their focus off running around buyers that were easy to get and putting that focus on building credibility for listings and focusing on homeowners and marketing yourself as a professional. So I think personally, I'm really at this stage where like I have such a deep understanding more of what I do as the years go on, the wisdom of like marketing and real estate that I
Yeah.
can really, really, really help people better market, do a much better job of selling real estate agent services
Yeah.
to people.
Yeah.
That's where
Yeah.
the money is.
Yeah. It's so true. Yeah. So true. Couldn't agree with you more. So how do people find you?
Sure.
How do they follow you?
Frank Klesitz, man. So just type in Frank Klesitz. I think I'm the only Klesitz you'll find on Google right now.
Okay.
Klesitz. I am the CEO of Vyral Marketing. It's a company I started at college. And we interview you on a webcam to create helpful videos for you to stay in touch with your database. We edit them and promote them and send them out. It's great. So go check out the company Vyral Marketing, VYRAL. That's online, or just check out Frank Klesitz. That's me as a person. And one of the things that I love doing is I love buying tickets to events, going to the bar and going to dinner and talking about all these things that you're talking about.
Yeah.
These are the same passions, because when you start, you know, finding a way to make money, a way to make a living in a way that you enjoy, free from someone else's control, that's consistent, predictable, doing something that you do, I think you hit a big jack part of that part of your life.
Yeah.
And I want that for more people.
For sure. For sure. Well, Frank, thank you. First of all, tell Katie I miss her and I love her and
Yeah.
I haven't seen her in way too long. You guys had to move to middle America instead of the beach.
And that goes back to what we talked about today. I looked at Katie and was like, California is getting too expensive. We can
Yeah.
totally live here. We can afford to live here, but we got to lower our costs.
Yeah.
So we moved to Tennessee
Yep.
out
Well,
of that philosophy.
everybody followed you. So the good news is you got there kind of on the front end and now lots of people followed you. So good
Yep.
news for you, whatever real estate you bought. I think you bought a couple of houses there, should be paying off really well for you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Frank, thank you so much. And again, if you have not hit the subscribe button, please go ahead and do that now. And remember, Jim and I are just ordinary people who have decided to have an extraordinary life. So if you know other people like that, please pass this podcast along. And the greatest compliment you can give us is a 5-star review. Frank, thank you. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Linda.
Thanks for listening today. If you haven't already, please subscribe and share this podcast with others. The greatest compliment you can give us is to leave a 5-star review, and please feel free to reach out to us at info@lindamckisack.com. We would love to hear from you about any ideas, topics, or guests to include on our podcast. So see you next time.